The alien ship's corridors felt like a cage, and Elias knew every pair of eyes was on him. He walked past long stretches of silver walls lined with shifting lights, their patterns alien yet sharp as knives. Whispers followed him. The crew of the Zephyrus didn't trust humans. To them he was fragile, unpredictable, maybe even dangerous. Their slit-pupil eyes followed his every step. Their words carried a hum, low and biting, and though he couldn't understand all of it, he knew enough. The human doesn't belong here. Elias kept his shoulders squared. He had to. If he showed weakness, they'd eat him alive. Not literally, though staring at the sharp teeth of some of them, he wasn't entirely sure. He was just a technician, sent to repair human-designed modules on this alien vessel. But he had become a curiosity, a living specimen in their metal hive. Every move, every breath monitored. At the mess hall, silence always followed him. At the workstations, they made space but not with kindness. It was like watching a predator circle its prey, waiting for the right time. He was the intruder, tolerated but never trusted. The Alien Council had insisted on this cooperation, but the crew never agreed with it, and he felt the weight of that decision every day. Then there was her. Lyra. She didn't look like the others. Her features were sharper, her skin faintly glowing under the ship's pale light. Silver strands of hair framed her face, her eyes like liquid violet, and her grin. Always that grin. She teased him, often in front of the others, calling him soft or slow. But there was something behind her words, something he couldn't place. It wasn't cruelty, more like curiosity mixed with mischief. He'd catch her watching him differently than the rest. Tonight, the mess hall felt colder than usual. Elias sat in the corner trying to eat the gray stew they served, ignoring the stares. The crew whispered again, their voices just low enough to feel like daggers. He had almost stopped caring, but then Lyra slid into the seat across from him. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand, her grin wide. "Hungry human?" she asked. Her voice carried across the room, pulling every eye to them. Elias swallowed. "Trying. They stare too much, don't they?" she whispered, though loud enough for him to hear. Like carrion birds, he blinked. "You're not supposed to say that, are you?" Her grin widened. "Maybe not, but I say many things I shouldn't." The room's tension thickened. Elias glanced around and saw more eyes narrowing. Lyra leaned closer, ignoring them all. She spoke in a whisper only he could hear. "Do you want to stop being their entertainment?" Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" She leaned back, stretching like she didn't have a care in the world. Her voice was louder now, playful but sharp. "Because no one's watching anymore." The crew stirred uneasily. Elias looked around, confused. Eyes were still on them. But then Lyra stood, taking his hand. A ripple of murmurs spread across the room. Without hesitation, she pulled him up and led him toward the corridor. Elias resisted slightly. "Where are we going?" Her grip tightened. She grinned back at him, violet eyes gleaming under the pale lights. "To my cabin," he froze. Every alien eye tracked them. The whispers grew louder, sharper, filled with judgment. But Lyra didn't stop. She pulled him down the corridor, her steps certain, her posture defiant. Elias stumbled to keep up. His pulse quickened. He didn't know what this was. Mockery, a trap, or something else entirely. They turned corner after corner until the mess hall was far behind. The ship's hum grew quieter here, the lights dimmer. She stopped at a tall door etched with alien markings. Her personal quarters. She placed her hand on a glowing panel. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, her cabin was different from the cold metal of the rest of the ship. Soft lights glowed from crystals set in the walls. Strange fabrics draped over the furniture. It felt warmer, more alive. A sharp contrast to the sterile corridors outside. Lyra pulled him in, the door sliding shut behind them. Silence wrapped around him. For the first time since he'd boarded the Zephyrus, no one's eyes followed him. No whispers, no judgment. Elias's chest tightened. Why would you bring me here?" Lyra leaned against the wall, arms folded, her grin never fading. "Because," she said softly, "sometimes you need to hide from the wolves. And sometimes," her eyes locked on his, "you need to see what happens when no one's watching." The door sealed shut, and Elias realized whatever game she was playing, it had just begun. The silence inside Lyra's cabin was heavy, almost too heavy for Elias. He stood near the door, unsure if he should sit or stay standing. Every instinct told him he was walking into a trap. No one else on this ship treated him with anything. other than suspicion. Yet here he was, alone with the most unpredictable alien he had met. Lyra moved with casual grace, like she had done this 1,000 times before. She slid a hand along the strange fabric that draped her wall, then pulled a small switch. The cabin lights dimmed, leaving only the soft glow of violet crystals. Shadows stretched across her face, making her grin even sharper. She didn't look like someone about to betray him. She looked like someone enjoying herself. "You don't relax, do you?" she asked, tilting her head. "Always stiff, always ready for the knife behind your back." Elias shifted uncomfortably. "That's what happens when everyone on board wants to cut you open just to see how you work." Her laugh was quick like a spark. "Not everyone." She stepped closer, her violet eyes watching him carefully. "Do you think I dragged you in here to kill you?" He swallowed. "I don't know what you dragged me in here for." Lyra leaned against the table in the center of the room. She picked up a strange glass, filled with a glowing liquid that pulsed faintly. She took a sip, then offered it to him. Elias hesitated but finally shook his head. She laughed again. "Cautious? Good. That's why you're still breathing." Elias crossed his arms. "Then tell me, why am I here?" Lyra set the glass down and her smile faded, just a little. "Because the Council is watching you too closely. They think humans are hiding something. They think you're hiding something." That made Elias's heart pound. He had secrets, yes, but not the kind she imagined. He was here as a technician, nothing more. But there were things the Council could twist, things they might never forgive if they found out. "And what do you think?" he asked carefully. Lyra's eyes narrowed, but not with hostility, more like curiosity. "I think humans are too strange to measure. You survive things that should kill you. You break rules that should bind you. And you're not afraid of the Council, even though you should be." "I'm afraid," Elias said quietly. "I just don't show it." Her grin returned, but this time it was softer, almost approving. "Good. Never show them. They eat fear." Elias sat down finally, sinking into one of the strange chairs. It molded to his body in ways that felt too alive. He shivered. "So what, you're protecting me?" "Why?" Lyra didn't answer right away. She circled the room, like a predator testing her prey, her silver hair catching the faint light. Finally, she stopped in front of him, close enough for him to see the strange markings along her jaw. Tattoos or maybe natural lines, he couldn't tell. "Because I hate the way they look at you," she said simply. "Like you're less, like you're prey. I hate it because I know what that feels like." That surprised him. "You? You're one of them. They listen to you." "They fear me," she corrected. "Not the same thing. They wait for me to make a mistake, and one day they'll use it to drag me down." Elias studied her, realizing this was the first time she had spoken without jokes or games. She wasn't mocking him. She was opening a door. "So we're both trapped," he said. Lyra's grin returned, but slower this time. "Exactly." She leaned closer, lowering her voice until it was almost a whisper. "That's why you're in my cabin. Out there, they'll crush you. In here, I can cover you. But in return, you have to trust me. Trust." That was the word Elias struggled with most. Trust meant lowering his guard. Trust meant giving someone else the power to hurt him. On this ship, trust could get him killed. But when Lyra looked at him with those strange violet eyes, he felt something different. Not safety exactly, but something close. "And if I don't?" he asked. Her grin sharpened again. "Then the Council will eat you alive, and I'll just watch." He believed her. She wasn't bluffing. She could be ally or enemy depending on his choice. Elias exhaled slowly, nodding once. "All right, I'll trust you. For now." Lyra leaned back, satisfied. "Good answer, human." She flicked the light back up, the room glowing brighter again. "But know this. Trust comes with danger. The more you trust me, the more dangerous this will become." Elias frowned. "Dangerous how?" A sudden sound cut him off. A deep alarm hummed through the ship. Red lights flickered along the walls. Lyra's grin vanished. She turned toward the door, tense now. "They're sweeping the ship," she whispered. "Security search." Elias stood instantly. "For me? Maybe." She pressed her hand to the wall, a panel sliding open. Inside was a narrow, hollow space. "Get in." He blinked. "What?" Lyra shoved him toward it, her voice sharp and urgent. "Hide. Now. If they find you in my cabin, they'll think I'm protecting you, and they'll destroy us both." The alarm grew louder, closer. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Elias's pulse thundered. For a moment, he hesitated. Then Lyra's hand pressed hard against his chest, pushing him inside. The panel slid shut, plunging him into darkness. He could barely breathe. Outside, he heard the cabin door hiss open. Voices barked in an alien tongue. Heavy boots scraped across the floor. Lyra's voice rose, calm but sharp, answering them. Elias couldn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. She was lying for him, risking herself. And in that dark, suffocating space, Elias realized one thing. He wasn't sure if he feared the council more, or Lyra herself. The hidden space pressed against Elias's chest, every breath shallow in the dark. His ears picked up every sound in Lyra's cabin. The heavy boots of security guards thudded across the floor. Their voices, sharp and clipped, filled the air like blades scraping metal. He couldn't understand their alien tongue, but he didn't need to. The tone was enough. "They were hunting," Lyra's voice cut through, calm but cold. She spoke fast, her tone laced with irritation, as though scolding them for barging into her quarters. Elias pressed his hand against the panel, straining to hear every word. He knew she was lying, weaving words to keep them from finding him. And he realized something terrifying. If they searched too closely, if they touched this wall, he would be exposed. A sudden silence froze him. Boots stopped moving. Then came a metallic scrape, the sound of a scanner. He shut his eyes tight, heart hammering like a drum. If the scanner swept the wall, it would light him up like prey in a spotlight. But then Lyra's laughter broke the silence. It was loud, sharp, mocking. She spoke again, her tone playful this time. The guards muttered among themselves. One hissed something like a threat, but Lyra answered with a snarl that echoed through the cabin. The boots retreated a few steps. Then, after 10 seconds, the hiss of the door opening. The boots faded. The alarm dimmed. Silence fell again. The wall panel clicked, sliding open. Elias stumbled out, gasping for air. Lyra stood there with her arms folded, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the soft cabin light. Her grin returned, though it was thinner now, sharper. "You breathe too loud," she teased. Elias nearly collapsed into the strange chair. His chest burned. "They almost found me." Her grin softened. "Almost, but not quite. You see why you need me now?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah. Without you, I'd already be dead." Lyra poured herself another glass of the glowing drink and raised it in a mock toast. "Then it's decided. You stay close to me. Very close." Elias frowned. "But why take the risk? You said they'd destroy us both if they knew." Lyra's eyes darkened. She set down the glass, stepping closer until she was standing right over him. "Because I don't follow their rules. And because you're different. I can't explain it yet, but I know it. And I'd rather gamble with you than rot under their chains." Her words carried weight. She wasn't just helping him for fun. She was making a choice, one that could cost her everything. Elias looked up at her, studying her face. Beneath the grin, there was fire. She was daring him to understand her, daring him to match her risk. Before he could answer, the ship lurched violently. A deep tremor rolled through the cabin, knocking the glass to the floor. It shattered, glowing liquid spilling across the strange fabric. Elias gripped the chair to keep from falling. The hum of the engines roared louder. Somewhere beyond the walls, alarms blared again, sharper and more urgent. Lyra's grin vanished. She pressed her hand against the wall panel, pulling up glowing symbols. Her voice tightened. "Raiders," Elias stood. "Raiders? Pirates, slavers, scavengers," she snapped. "They must have tracked us. The council will panic. And panic makes them dangerous." The cabin lights flickered red. A deep voice boomed over the ship's comm system, calling orders. Lyra's hands moved quickly over the glowing panel. Then she turned to him, her face serious. "You can't stay here. If they board the ship, The council will lock you down as a bargaining chip. Human tech is valuable. You're valuable. Elias clenched his fists. He hated that word, valuable. It made him sound less like a person, more like property. So what do we do? Lyra stepped close, her hand brushing his arm, her grin returning with a spark of defiance. We survive together, but you'll have to fight. His eyes widened. Fight? I'm not a soldier. Then learn fast. She shoved a small device into his hand. It was smooth, pulsing with faint blue light. A weapon, alien but compact. Elias stared at it. I don't even know how this works. Lyra leaned close, her breath brushing his ear. Point. Press. Pray. The cabin door hissed open before he could reply. An alien officer stormed in, eyes blazing, demanding something in a harsh voice. His gaze locked on Elias. Rage filled the room like a storm. Elias tightened his grip on the weapon, unsure if he should raise it. Lyra stepped between them, her tone cutting like steel. The officer snarled back, pointing at Elias, shouting. Lyra's hand shot out, striking a crystal panel. The door slammed shut behind the officer, locking them all inside. The officer froze, realizing he had been trapped with them. His eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with fury. Lyra's grin stretched wide. Well, she said softly, looks like you'll get your first lesson now, human. The officer lunged. Elias raised the weapon. And in that moment, he understood. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was war, and Lyra had chosen him as her partner in it. The alien officer lunged with frightening speed, his clawed hands aiming for Elias's throat. Elias reacted without thinking. He raised the alien weapon and pressed the glowing stud. A blast of blue light shot out, striking the officer in the chest and hurling him backward into the wall. The impact shook the cabin. The officer collapsed, gasping. Armor scorched with sizzling burns. Elias stood frozen, his hands trembling, the weapon still humming in his grip. He had never fired a weapon before, not in battle, not at someone alive. His chest rose and fell in sharp bursts, his body locked between fear and shock. Lyra's grin spread wide. She clapped her hands once, almost delighted. Not bad for a beginner. You didn't even scream. Elias lowered the weapon, his stomach twisting. I almost killed him. Lyra crouched by the officer, checking his condition. She pressed a panel on the wall, locking a containment field around him. The officer lay unconscious but breathing. Lyra stood again, brushing her silver hair back. Almost killing is better than being killed. Remember that, human. Elias sank back into the strange chair, gripping the weapon tightly. This isn't what I came here for. I fix systems. I build things. I'm not supposed to be in the middle of... He gestured wildly toward the door. This madness. Lyra leaned against the table, tilting her head. And yet here you are. Still breathing. Still dangerous. Maybe that's who you've always been, you just didn't know it. The ship shuddered violently again. Outside, the sound of weapons fire echoed through the hull. The raiders were attacking with everything they had. Elias looked toward the door, then back at Lyra. If they board, the council will hand me over, won't they? Lyra's grin faded into something sharper, more serious. She stepped closer, her violet eyes burning with intensity. Yes, they'll chain you up like a prize and trade you for their safety. That's what they do. That's what they've always done, Elias frowned. And you? You're part of them. Why are you helping me? Her lips pressed into a thin line. She turned away, pacing slowly. For once, there was no teasing in her voice. Because I don't want to be like them. Because I know what it feels like to be seen as a tool instead of a person. Because... She stopped, gripping the edge of the table. Because I'm not just another officer. I'm heir to the command. Elias blinked, stunned. Heir, you mean? You're next in line for the council? Lyra turned, her violet eyes glowing faintly under the cabin lights. Yes. They watch me as closely as they watch you. Every word I speak, every move I make, they weigh it against their traditions. One mistake and they'll strip me of everything. They're waiting for it. Elias stared at her, the weight of her confession sinking in. She wasn't just reckless. She was rebelling against an empire of rules. She risked more than her own life. She risked her bloodline. And yet, he said slowly, you brought me here. You defy them in front of everyone. Why? Her grin returned, smaller now, almost fragile. Because you don't see me as their heir. You see me as Lyra. That's rare. The words caught him off guard. He didn't know how to answer. He had thought she was mocking him, toying with him. But now he saw something else. Beneath the mischief, beneath the fire, she was lonely, trapped in a role she never chose, just like him. Before he could reply, the ship rocked again, harder this time. Lights flickered. Distant explosions rumbled. The cabin shuddered as if the walls themselves were groaning. Lyra's eyes darted to the ceiling. They've breached the outer hull. Elias stood quickly. Then we need to get out of here. Lyra grabbed her weapon from the table and slung it across her back. No, we need to get to the command deck. If the raiders overwhelm them, the council will abandon the ship. They'll leave everyone else to die. Elias shook his head. And you expect me to fight my way to the command deck? Lyra smirked. I expect you to survive. Fighting is just part of it. She opened the door. The corridor outside was chaos. Sirens blaring, lights flashing, crew running in every direction. Smoke drifted through the air, the scent sharp and acrid. Shadows darted as armed guards sprinted past, shouting orders. Elias followed close behind Lyra, clutching the alien weapon in his hand. His chest was tight, his mind racing. Every instinct told him to run the other way, to find a corner and hide. But something stronger pulled him forward. Lyra's certainty, her defiance, her fire. As they moved through the corridors, they passed frightened crew huddled in corners. Some looked at Elias with hatred, others with fear, but none tried to stop him, not with Lyra at his side. Her presence was like a shield. They reached a junction and Lyra stopped abruptly, pressing her hand against Elias's chest. She listened. Heavy boots clattered nearby. She pulled him into the shadows, her face inches from his. Raiders, she whispered. Elias tightened his grip on the weapon. His pulse roared in his ears. He wasn't ready. He'd never be ready. But when Lyra's violet eyes locked onto his, he felt something strange. Not calm, not courage, something fiercer. A promise he didn't understand yet. The footsteps grew louder. Voices barked orders in a guttural tongue. Shapes appeared around the corner. Heavily armored raiders, weapons raised. Lyra grinned, sharp and fearless. Stay close, human. Tonight they'll learn what happens when prey bites back. And with that, she charged. The raiders stormed the corridor, their armored bodies filling the narrow passage with clattering boots and snarling voices. Their helmets glowed with crimson visors and jagged blades glistened in their hands. The first of them spotted Lyra and barked a command. Weapons raised, Lyra didn't hesitate. She sprang forward with the grace of a predator, her own weapon firing in rapid bursts. Bright violet beams cut through the air, striking two raiders square in the chest. They crumpled, their armor hissing from the impact. Elias flinched at the sight but forced himself to lift his own weapon. The raiders roared, charging. Elias pointed the alien device and pressed the stud. A surge of blue light blasted one raider back into the wall, his weapon clattering to the floor. Another swung a jagged blade at Elias's head. He ducked on instinct, heart pounding, and shoved the weapon upward. The blue light caught the raider under the chin, sending him sprawling. Adrenaline surged through Elias's veins. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained. But in this moment, survival carved every decision into his muscles. Point, press, pray. Lyra's words echoed in his mind, and he realized he was still alive only because of them. The corridor filled with smoke and sparks. More raiders poured in from the far side. Elias stumbled back against the wall, weapon trembling in his grip. Lyra moved like lightning, her violet eyes glowing with fury. She struck one raider with the butt of her weapon, then spun to blast another. For every enemy she dropped, two more surged forward. Keep moving, she shouted, her voice sharp over the chaos. She grabbed Elias by the arm and pulled him forward deeper into the ship. They sprinted through the winding corridors, past wrecked panels and sparks flying from ruptured conduits. Raiders chased them, their boots pounding, their voices a guttural chorus. They rounded a corner and collided with a squad of alien crew members. For a heartbeat, everyone froze. The crew stared at Elias, their slit pupil eyes wide. Some snarled, ready to accuse him of sabotage. But then they saw the blood on his hands, the weapon in his grip, the raiders behind him. Elias raised his weapon, panting, braced for them to turn on him. But Lyra stepped forward, her voice like iron. He fights with me. The crew hesitated. Then one of them raised his own weapon, firing down the corridor at the raiders. The others followed. Suddenly Elias wasn't alone. The same crew that once looked at him with suspicion now fought alongside him. Elias pressed himself into the cover of a bulkhead, firing as the raiders advanced. Blue light tore through armor, dropping enemies one by one. His arms ached from the recoil, his chest burned from the smoke, but he refused to stop. Every time his finger pressed the stud, he thought of Lyra's grin, of the way she had said no one was watching. And he realized now everyone was watching, and they were finally seeing something different. The raiders retreated for a moment, regrouping farther down the corridor. The crew cheered, their sharp voices cutting through the smoke. One of them clapped Elias on the shoulder, muttering words he didn't understand but felt the weight of. Respect. Lyra leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Sweat gleamed on her silver skin, her grin sharper than ever. Not bad, human, she said. They'll talk about this. Elias shook his head, exhausted. I don't want them to talk about me. I just want to survive. Lyra's grin softened. Survival is the only story worth telling. And tonight you've begun yours. Another tremor shook the ship. The lights flickered. The comm system crackled with the booming voice of the council, ordering all crew to fall back and defend the command deck. Elias looked toward Lyra, panic rising. The council's going to abandon us, aren't they? Her grin vanished. She glanced down the corridor, eyes narrowing. Yes, if the raiders push farther, they'll seal the upper decks. Everyone else will be left behind. The crew members around them heard her words and froze. Fear and anger flashed in their eyes. Elias saw it clearly. These people didn't want to die for the council's cowardice. They wanted someone to lead them, and then slowly their eyes shifted to him. Elias's chest tightened. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't even supposed to be here. But their gaze was steady, waiting, hoping. Lyra stepped closer, her voice low but firm. They'll follow you. They've seen you fight. They've seen you bleed. He shook his head. I'm human. They barely tolerate me. Her violet eyes burned. That's why they'll follow. Because you're not them. Because you don't carry the council's chains. You showed them courage when theirs faltered. Elias looked at the crew again. They nodded, some raising their weapons in silent agreement. His pulse thundered. He had never wanted command. But survival demanded it. He raised his weapon and spoke clearly, his voice carrying through the smoke-filled corridor. Then we fight our way to the command deck. We don't run. We don't hide. We stand together. The crew let out a sharp cry, a sound of unity. Lyra's grin widened, fierce and proud. Now you sound like one of us. The raiders charged again, their voices echoing like thunder. Elias stood at the front this time, weapon steady in his hands. Fear still gnawed at him, but something stronger burned above it. A fire he didn't know he had until this moment. And as the battle roared on, Elias realized something terrifying. He wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. He was fighting for them. The command deck loomed ahead, its tall silver doors pulsing with security lights. Smoke drifted from ruptured conduits, and the air was heavy with the metallic tang of burned circuits. Elias and the crew he had rallied pushed forward, weapons raised, covering one another. The sound of battle echoed behind them, the raiders pressing hard, but somehow they had held. When the doors slid open, Elias expected to find leaders ready to defend their people. Instead, he found chaos. The alien council sat at a curved table, their jeweled robes shimmering in the red emergency lights. They shouted over one another, not about strategies, but about escape. In the corner, guards prepared a shuttle, its engines humming. Lyra's face hardened into a mask of fury. They're abandoning the ship, she hissed. Elias stepped forward, his weapon still in hand. The counselors froze at the sight of him, their slit pupil eyes narrowing in disgust. One of them, tall and draped in crimson, pointed at him sharply. His voice thundered across the chamber. Seize the human. He's the cause of this chaos. Guards turned toward Elias, weapons drawn. The crew behind him hesitated. Their eyes flicked between the council and Elias, torn. Elias felt the weight of every stare. This was the moment. Lyra stepped in front of him, her voice cold as steel. No, he fights with me. He saved your crew when you hid. Without him, the raiders would already own this ship. The counselor in crimson slammed a hand against the table. He's an outsider, a danger. And you, Lyra, you have broken every law by shielding him. You disgrace your bloodline. Gasps echoed. Elias's chest tightened. He looked at Lyra, waiting for her to deny it, to step back and save herself. But she didn't. She only smiled, sharp and defiant. Yes, she said simply. I defied you. I chose him. The chamber erupted. Counselors shouted, guards moved forward. Elias raised his weapon, his pulse racing, but Lyra lifted a hand, stopping him. She didn't flinch. Her violet eyes burned, her grin fierce. Elias whispered, "They'll exile you. Or worse." Her voice softened, but her words were steady. "Let them. I won't kneel to cowards." The crew stepped closer to Elias and Lyra, forming a line between them and the council. The guards hesitated, suddenly outnumbered. The balance of power shifted with every heartbeat. Then the ship rocked violently, throwing everyone off balance. The deck lights flickered. Over the comm, a desperate voice shouted, "Raiders breaching lower levels."
"Shields collapsing."
Panic surged through the chamber. The counselors scrambled toward the shuttle, shoving one another aside in their rush to escape. Elias stared in disbelief. "They're leaving everyone." Lyra's grin twisted into something colder. "Told you." The crimson-robed counselor turned one last time, eyes blazing. "Lyra, if you step onto this deck again, you'll be branded a traitor. And you, human, you'll die with the rest." The shuttle doors hissed shut, sealing the council inside. A moment later, it launched from the command deck, vanishing into the black void of space. Silence fell. The crew looked around, stunned, abandoned by the very leaders they had sworn to follow. Some trembled, others growled in fury. Elias felt the air thicken with despair. But then slowly their eyes turned to him again. Lyra stepped close, her voice low. "This is it, human. They'll follow you now. Not because you're one of them, but because you're not." Elias swallowed hard. He wasn't a leader, he kept telling himself. But when he looked at their faces, afraid, angry, waiting, he couldn't stay silent. He raised his weapon high. "The council abandoned you, but I won't. We fight together or we die together. I swear it." The crew let out a roar, a sound that shook the chamber. Lyra's grin widened, fierce pride in her eyes. For the first time, Elias believed he wasn't just pretending. He was leading. But then came the price. Lyra turned to him, her voice quieter, almost tender. "You've chosen your side. That means you've chosen me. From this moment, your fate is tied to mine. If I fall, you fall. Do you accept that?" Elias looked at her. Her silver hair glowed in the flickering lights, her violet eyes burned with fire. She wasn't mocking him. She was giving him a chance to step away. But he already knew his answer. "I accept," he said firmly. Lyra's grin softened into something warmer, rare. "Then let's make them remember us." The ship shook again, harder this time. Alarms blared. Raiders hammered at the lower decks, clawing their way closer. Elias tightened his grip on the weapon. Around him, the crew readied themselves. There was no turning back. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of the council. He wasn't afraid of being prey. He wasn't afraid of dying. Because now he had something worth standing for. And as the deck doors shook under the force of the raiders, Elias whispered to himself, steady and certain, "We fight as one." The command deck doors shook under the pounding of raiders' weapons. Each impact rattled the chamber, sending vibrations through the floor. Sparks rained from ruptured panels and the acrid scent of smoke filled the air. The crew gripped their weapons tighter, their slit pupil eyes fixed on Elias. For the first time they looked at him not as prey, but as someone who might lead them through the fire. Lyra stood beside him, her silver hair catching the dim red glow of alarms, her violet eyes fierce. She leaned close, her grin sharp. "This is it, human. No council, no lies, just us. If we fall loud." Elias steadied his breathing, the alien weapon humming in his hand. He felt the fear clawing at him, but it no longer controlled him. He had something stronger now, the trust of those around him and Lyra's fire pushing him forward. He lifted the weapon high. "We hold the line. For the ship. For each other. No one runs." A chorus of voices answered, a raw cry of unity that shook the chamber more than the raiders' pounding. The door burst inward. Shards of metal scattered across the floor. Raiders surged through the breach, their crimson visors glowing, their weapons raised. The battle erupted in a storm of light and sound. Beams of violet and blue ripped through the smoke, striking armored invaders. Elias fired again and again, each blast hitting harder, his aim steadier than before. A raider swung a jagged blade at him. He ducked and pressed the stud, sending the attacker crashing into the wall. The crew fought like wolves at his side, their snarls and cries mixing with the hum of weapons. Lyra was everywhere at once. She leapt across the wreckage, her strikes precise, her movements fluid. Raiders fell beneath her like she was born for this. She fought not as a council heir, but as a warrior who refused to kneel. Every time Elias faltered, her voice cut through the chaos, sharp and steady. "Stand tall, human. Show them your teeth." The raiders pressed harder, their numbers overwhelming, but the crew refused to break. Elias felt his body ache, his arms burn, but still he fought. He saw fear in the raiders' eyes now. They had expected easy prey, but they had walked into a storm. Then came the largest of them. A raider commander, towering in black armor etched with crimson scars, shoved his way through the breach. His weapon crackled with raw energy, a blade longer than Elias's arm. He roared, his voice shaking the chamber, and pointed straight at Elias. The crew froze. For a heartbeat, the noise of battle seemed to fade. All eyes turned to Elias. The commander stepped forward, ready to cut him down. Elias's grip tightened. His pulse thundered. He had never faced something like this. The commander was faster, stronger, deadlier. He wasn't sure he could win, but Lyra stepped in front of him, her grin fierce. "No," Elias said quickly. "This is mine." Her violet eyes locked onto his, searching, testing. Then slowly she stepped aside, her grin curling into something proud. "Then claim it, human." The commander lunged, his blade slicing through the air. Elias rolled aside, the strike missing him by inches. He fired his weapon, but the blast glanced off the commander's armor. Sparks flew, but the giant kept coming. Elias ducked another swing, his chest burning, his mind screaming to run. But he stood his ground. The commander swung again, faster this time. Elias raised his weapon, blocking the strike with the metal frame. The weapon crackled, almost snapping in half. With a desperate roar, Elias shoved forward and pressed the stud point blank into the commander's chest. The blast tore through the armor, hurling the giant backward in a shower of sparks. The commander collapsed, his blade clattering to the floor. Silence fell. The raiders froze, their visors glowing dimly in the smoke. Then slowly they backed away, dragging their fallen leader with them. The breach quieted. The remaining raiders retreated into the corridors, their snarls fading. The crew erupted in cheers, their voices raw with triumph. Some banged their weapons against the walls. Others shouted Elias's name in their tongue. For the first time, he wasn't a stranger. He wasn't prey. He was theirs. Lyra stepped forward, her violet eyes glowing in the smoke-filled light. She raised Elias's hand high, her voice carrying across the chamber. "The council abandoned you. The raiders tried to break you, but this human stood with us.
He fought with us.
He bled with us. He is mine, and I claim him." Gasps filled the chamber. Every crew member froze, then bowed their heads. In their culture, such words were more than a declaration. They were binding. Lyra had marked Elias not just as an ally, but as her chosen. Her equal. Elias's chest tightened. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't asked for it. But when he looked into Lyra's eyes, he saw no mockery, no game. He saw fire, trust, and something he had never thought he would find here: belonging. He squeezed her hand, his voice steady. "Then I claim you too." The crew roared again, louder than before, a sound of unity that shook the deck. The ship still smoldered. The raiders still lingered beyond the hull, but for now they had won. And in that victory, something greater had been forged. Elias looked around at the crew who once hated him, at the shattered command deck, at Lyra standing proud beside him. He knew the council would come for them one day. He knew the galaxy would never forgive this defiance. But none of that mattered now. Because when no one was watching, Lyra had pulled him into her cabin. And when everyone was watching, she had pulled him into her world, and together human and alien stood as one.